Hello, everyone. My name is Duncan. I am joined by Sloan.
Hello.
And Jeff.
What's up?
And we are Commander's Pod. We invite you to join our pod for the day. Sloan and Jeff and I are going to talk about several things today. We're going to have a Tales from the Table. We're going to talk about what if you could have one card that you could have more than one of in your deck?
Mm-hmm.
What one card would you pick? Jeff's going to talk about first world problems. We're going to talk about things that don't do what you think it does. And we're going to talk about commanders we hate to face.
Mm-hmm.
Now, hate may be a strong word. In most cases, we're going to be willing to face them, but we're going to get into that more. And Sloan always gives some advice. So first, we're going to have a Tales from the Table. So this weekend, Wizards ran an event in most shops where you could do a draft, commander draft. It was with the Commander Baldur's Gate set. And you got one collector's pack, and you got to keep that whole pack to build with. And then there were 3 packs that you did traditional drafts. So you open a pack, you take 2 cards out. It was a fast draft, they call it, because you get 2 cards.
Yeah,
you
I was going to say, you only get one. But
and then the next pack, you pass them to the right, and then the last one back to the left.
Right.
So when I open my main pack, I'm going through, and the reason they did the collector's pack is because there's usually at least 2 or 3 commanders in it. This set was built with the idea of drafting commanders in mind. And I'm going through and I'm looking, trying to figure out if there's a commander there. And I see Duke over Ravengard, who I just built. And Sloan mentioned briefly that it's a myriad commander. 1 creature gets haste and myriad a turn. It's red-white. So in a normal commander game, you would put your dockside in there, get myriad on dockside,
Sure.
you get 2 other docksides, you're getting tons of treasures or whatever, just doing gross things.
But in draft, it would just really be aggro.
Yeah. But so I was like, I want that. So I'm like building, spent that 50 minutes building my deck, putting it together after the draft, and I was really happy with how it came out. And as we're playing and things are slowly progressing, the player across from me is playing a dragon commander that it gets +X, where X is the power of all the dragon's powers on his side of the board besides that one. So pretty strong.
Yeah.
Andrew's in the draft, and there's this guy Bryce in the draft. I can't remember what they were playing, but we all had good decks. We all know what we're doing.
Mm-hmm.
And as it's going around, though, mine's starting to click. I'm starting to get, I had one that every time it entered the battlefield, I got to draw a card.
Yeah.
That's really good in a draft. Like you're drawing tons of cards. That's really good. And everybody's going, oh, geez. Well, so once that happened, the next time around the board, this player with the dragons, though, gets out in their dragon. Well, he's stronger. I'm doing things, but he is definitely stronger.
Sure.
So Bryce plays a enchantment on his commander that goads it and gives it +1/+1 on this guy's commander. So he's safe. But now,
For
Andrew
now,
in
he's
trouble.
safe for now.
Yeah.
Andrew on his turn goads it as well. So now it's only aimed at me, but I'm looking, it's early in the game. I've only taken 2 damage. I haven't taken any commander damage. I'm like, okay, even if I take like 18 damage, I got one more turn.
You got one more turn, right?
Right. So I'm like, okay. So I went off. Like my deck just popped off. I did a lot of damage to everybody, and I had a great board state. I'm feeling good going into the next turn, even though I know that thing's aimed at me. And the player across from me draws a card, looks at me and says, well, I guess you're dying today. And he proceeds to play a card that gave his commander #1 trample. So that's a problem.
Yeah. Guess
Because before I was like, I can block.
Right.
And #2 gave him a 2nd combat.
Oh.
And
gross.
#3 played another card that gave it double strike.
Oh, jeez.
So I'm done. There was nothing I could do. So they did what you
Yeah, and
wanted.
probably someone else is done too, I would gather.
Oh, no, that turn, no. Because I could prevent enough damage.
That he had to swing.
He had to
twice.
use
Yeah.
both on you.
Yeah.
Okay.
See,
But-
in that moment too, I don't know. Maybe Jeff would have done this, but I've been like, you know what? If I'm going down, someone else is losing with me. I'm not blocking.
Oh, especially if you goaded him.
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah,
I'm
because
taking all the
then he's
damage
a-
in the first attack.
See,
So
I
then
felt like
he's
that
a
would be
left-
a spiteful play, and I don't.
Listen, they did it because they goaded the thing. They
Yeah.
+1'd it.
Yeah.
They didn't deal with it. They just made it attack me. So I'm 100% taking all the damage in the first turn.
Yeah, all the combat damage, give it to
Yep.
me, and then you get to pick who you want to kill
100%,
next.
yeah.
And all props to Bryce. He then plays a spell on his turn after that guy kills me. He's next player in line, and he plays this thing that wipes the board, and
Yep.
No.
so now everything's safe. And
Which he
tidy.
probably had
Yeah.
beforehand, but
Yeah.
knew he didn't have to use it. That's why, again, I 100% would have done what Johnny said.
Yeah, just let the
So-
damage get through.
So I do get my dues. I was doing gross things, and I was
I got my
thinking I
listen
was
to
on
the
top of
podcast.
the world, and
Yeah, that's a good one.
so, so we're gonna talk about if you could have one card in your deck that you could have 2 copies of, which card would that be? And I guess there's 2 ways to look at it. If you have in every deck, you could have this card twice, which limits it to things that could be put in every deck, or that one card that's just so good you wish you could have it twice.
I've got 2 right off the top of my head.
All right, let's hear them.
Soul Ring and the One Ring. So they're both rings, but Soul Ring by far the first.
Yeah.
And then probably after that, the One Ring. I'd love to have multiples of those.
Yeah, you get 2 soul rings. You can get the one ring out in one turn. so that was pretty good.
I've been saving mine because I
Okay.
want to see Sloan's face.
I'm-
Roaming Throne.
Yeah, I have that listed because I'm not stupid. Like, why? If you want to be a gross human being, yeah, put 2 roaming thrones in any deck. The fact that there's already cards out there to let you steal a roaming throne so you can have multiples already at once is gross.
I probably have the
But-
most roaming thrones out of the 3 of us.
Yeah.
But I still
Not
probably
if you
wouldn't
count
choose
proxies,
that.
but yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those things where it's if I'm picking a gross card, I'm picking Roman Throne. The other one that I'm thinking, and this is more again because it's gross, maybe like a Notion Thief.
Yeah.
Just so like, oh, you got rid of one, cool, I got another one. Like, I don't
So
care.
you guys are both roaming throne, and then you're Notion Thief. And what is your other one?
I could list so many. Force of Will.
I'm gonna go probably Teferi's Protection, and this one's hard because it can't. Not only can it not go in every deck, it can't go in a lot of decks. But it's Necropotence. Oh, I love Necropotence.
Dockside. 2
Yeah,
Docksides.
Dockside.
Oh,
so
yes.
my fun one,
That is a good one, Dockside.
my fun one actually is usury.
Yeah, that's,
I attack with 2
they should make a
usuries.
rule that your commander can also be in the 99.
Well, no.
Yeah.
So now you're breaking the legend rule, you're breaking the 2 rule, and you could play both of them at the same time.
Yeah, I'm breaking everything. But if I could, man, if I can have 2 usuries attack at the same time, I choose 5 for both of them. There's
You
a
could
chance
build a
that,
deck where that would work. You
yeah,
could build
because
Mirror
it's
Mirror,
blue.
Gallery
You
and
Mirror.
could, yeah, you could.
What's it called? Mirror,
Mirror
box?
Box or Mirror Gallery. There's 2
Yeah,
of them.
Mirror Box, the Helm of Hosts too, where it creates a copy of him that's
So you
non-legendary.
can already do that.
Oh, I know you could. And on top of that, he's blue-red, so you got all the Sakashimas.
The other thing to
can
take
do it.
into account too is that there are deck archetypes. So depending on what deck you have, there's certain cards that you'd want in that deck too of.
Yeah.
So like in my dragon deck, Miriam, the one that Miriam, the one that comes out, and whenever you play your next dragon,
You
you
get a
get 2 of
copy.
them, and the legend rule doesn't apply. That's the most powerful card in that deck, I think. So
Yeah, it's
2
a
of them
gross
in
dragon.
that deck would probably be more powerful than any other card, including Soul Ring. So you take those things into account. Roaming Throne obviously makes a lot of decks more powerful.
Yeah, Roaming Throne in that dragon deck is gross because
Yeah.
it literally does what you just said for that
So,
creature.
so Sloan,
Yeah.
let me point out, you don't need 2 usuries. Sakashima of 1,000 Faces.
Well, that's what I said. You have all the Sakashimas
Spark
because he's
double.
blue-red. Like I get you could do it, but to me, it's just more fun to actually have a second usury.
But that would be an interesting rule if you could have your commander in the 99 as well as the command zone. So you get one, or you can't recur it easily, but you get one more like
Yeah,
at
one more
cost.
chance to
It
get in
seems
there.
like there's 3 cards at least that do that right now.
There's a lot of
4,
cards.
5?
It's
There
in
is,
blue.
if you're not
you
playing
literally
blue
have,
though, you know.
Yeah, Usury is blue. So I understand. Like I could literally just make a clone deck with Usury.
Why don't you do that?
Because clones are freaking expensive, man. You got to, and because you have to get
The-
all the
the
stuff
good
that
ones
says,
are, yeah.
you have to get all the stuff that says legend rules don't apply. You have to get all those kind, and then clone it. Because I do have some clones in my Volo deck, the one that doubles the creature if it doesn't share a creature type with one on the battlefield or in your graveyard. So I do have some clones like that. But yeah,
I'm surprised. Like I know it seemed like, but you guys have. I mean, Soul Ring. How is that not?
it's one of
Literally
those-
the best
I play
card to
Mana
have 2
Crypt,
of.
so that is an Air Soul Ring. It just costs
Yeah, but how
less.
about a third one?
Yeah.
How is
I
that
don't know,
not
I'd
a good
almost
idea?
rather have an Arcane
Well, because-
Signet than a
see,
Soul Ring.
this
Oh
just-
my gosh!
It's for color.
Yeah, I mean,
No way.
this just goes to show you
You're
the difference in
wild.
our mindsets, though, because Jeff is so focused on ramp. I mean, listen to the previous episode if you haven't about how he thinks green's the strongest because of the fact it has so much ramp. Like that just shows you our play styles. Like Jeff's like, I want all the ramp I can get.
And
We're
then
like
card draw.
We want to
Ramp and
double
then
our
card draw.
triggers.
I mean, I agree. If you have those two things and your deck's built well, you're probably going to win the game.
Right.
You
So,
know,
but to me, I
Color fixing, you talked about last episode too. Color fixing is important. You can have all the colorless mana you want, but sometimes you haven't got the colors.
Yeah, most ramp.
So
though.
in multicolored decks and especially because I play a lot of basic lands.
yeah.
well, no need to fear though, because they're doing all those stupid Eldrazi's for MH3 anyway. So his 2 Soul Rings are perfect for all those decks
I
he's gonna
can't
build.
wait to get my Eldrazi deck for that.
Oh God, I'm gonna kill myself.
No, I'm gonna kill you.
No, you won't. I'll scoop.
You'll still get exiled.
Jeff pulls out the deck and Johnny scoops before turn 1.
Hey, as far as I'm concerned, that's called free player removal.
Yeah.
So, but
Anything else that
I mean,
needs an
there's
honorable mention?
there's a couple of things again because there's are cards that already do copying effects. Obviously, it makes it a little bit harder to pick cards that it's like you can't really copy them. It's mostly the legendary ones because you can't have 2 of them. Like even 2
Yeah.
Atalis would be gross. Like
Yes.
I attack with 2 of them and I get double the free double the triggers and all that kind of stuff.
Yes, but with those copies, you have to have the first one.
Right.
That's the difference. What we're saying is you just get another one in your deck.
Right.
A copy spell means you, like if I'm going to copy Mirror, I have to have it.
So yeah, you're talking about having 2 at the same time, and that's one way of looking at it. But the other way was you have twice the chance to pull
Of
it.
hitting.
Right.
it.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so for certain decks, for white, I think an extra Esper Sentinel would be great.
Yeah.
I
that'd
still
be cool.
don't. I still think for white man, it's Teferi's Protection. That's such a
We've pointed out
Powerful
there's
card.
ways to kill somebody despite a Teferi's protection.
never seen
And
it
it's
ever
so
happen.
funny. We did
and
that
I've been
episode a
playing
while
it for
ago.
many years.
We did that episode a while ago. And
Yeah.
every single time that card is played, somebody says, that player's not here anymore. And I'm like, would you please listen to our podcast? Because
That's not
how
it
that
works.
works.
Yeah, no, 100%.
But I think each color probably has unique cards to them that you would want.
100%. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, like blue definitely
let's-
some of the counters
Let's
for sure.
So you guys are saying counters. I'm going Cyclonic Rift.
Yeah.
I'd love to have 2
definitely.
of those.
Yeah.
Yep.
And I know it's more mana, but it's such a I win. Like
Yep.
Yeah, it is a good thing. I mean, I feel like Duncan would want another possibility storms if we were going with red. Just
gross. So let's do it real quick. Black for me, it's Necropotence.
Red is Dockside.
Dockside. I 100% agree with that.
I would 100%. I think Dockside's probably the most viable one you can get.
it's not even
I
close.
said Blue Force of Will. If someone,
I mean,
Cyclonic Rift, though, I think Cyclonic
or,
Rift is better.
I mean, Ristic Study too is actually really
well,
good.
you got Mystic Remora.
Mystic Study with good players really is.
But if you have 2
Just-
of them, now you have to pay twice for one.
Why do you have 2 of them?
I'm just saying, if you're able to get 2 of them out at the same time, it's now costing you
keeps
2.
talking
You
about-
just have one more in your deck. It
I
doesn't
understand
guarantee
that.
you're getting both of them.
I understand it doesn't guarantee it, but if you do happen to get them both out at the same exact time, it's 2 per spell.
Sloan
I'm just
lives
saying.
in magical fairyland where
I
not only
don't.
can you have 2, but
Dude,
you're
it's
gonna get them
freaking
both.
blue. You can tutor for enchantments. Like, it's easy to get out. It's not
Blue
difficult.
doesn't have tutor
Yeah,
for
it does.
enchantments. Name
yes,
one.
Yes, it does.
Name one.
I don't know all the blue cards.
There
I know
isn't
it
a
has
blue
Yes, there
tutor
is.
for-
You're ridiculous.
I play the most blue.
Well, there is a commander that does it.
Yeah, but there's no.
Zer does it for
Yes.
free.
Yeah, but he's
When he attacks.
multicolored. There's no single.
I'm sorry.
blue
Is his color
color
blue? I thought so. Thank you.
Moving on.
I don't know. So Ristic Study would be pretty good. I think Cyclonic Rift is up there. Force of Will is good too, just because it's a free counter. Like, who doesn't love?
I
free
would rather
counters?
what's it called? The blue free spell, Fierce Guardianship.
Oh yeah, Fierce Guard. Oh, that's good too. But again, that's still relying on you having your commander out. for it
But
to be
I
free.
agree
it's
with Jeff.
the
I think
commander-
Cyclonic Rift is blue. White. What would be your white?
Smothering Tithe.
That's really good too.
Dang, yeah, that's good. Frick.
I mean, Trouble in Pairs. You
See, the downside with that is that it's still like you're only getting it if the other person.
I take it
does
back.
something.
I take it back. Farewell. Farewell is so gross
it is,
in
but
Commander.
it's expensive.
I mean,
It's 5 mana.
It's 6, 4 white white.
Is it 6?
Yeah,
Okay,
it's 4
but
white,
still,
white.
it exiles everything. So
Yeah.
nuts.
Yeah, and you get to choose too. Like
I'd
you
still
can
rather
choose
have a
certain
smothering tithe. I think that might be.
Yeah, I mean
I'd be happy with either one.
well, and
honestly.
again, because the way I'm thinking of it is like if you have 2 farewells in your hand, it's like it's not as good. Granted, you have a double chance of getting it. If you get 2 smothering tides, though, again,
So
that's a lot
what
more
is it
gross.
what is it in green then?
Oh, green has so much that
I mean, it
they
would
have
be
multiple things.
It'd be
that
kind
do
of
the
funny
same
to
things
drop
anyway.
2 Crater Hoof Behemoths on the same turn. Just-
Oh, so this
Gaia's
is
Cradle.
Gaia's
oh,
Cradle. That's what I was
dude.
going to say. I
Gaia's
was going to say
Cradle.
it's not
Oh
green,
my
but you need
gosh.
Gaia's Cradle. That would be it.
I think that would have to be because that's so much.
And
effing mana.
if you have to pick a green card, then you do the one that becomes Gaia's Cradle.
Growing Rights of it.
Growing Rights of Itlamok.
Yeah, that's a good one.
That's a pretty good one for 3 mana to get a.
Yeah.
I mean, I think Necropotence is for black though. I can't think of another.
I was trying to think.
I mean, you
I
have
mean,
Vamp
Cabal
Tutor, you
Coffers.
have Demonic Tutor, but again,
Cabal
that's a land.
Coffers is pretty
Yeah,
good.
it's a land though.
Yeah. I mean, Cabal Coffers is pretty good.
Anyways,
But
this
that's
is
so-
a crazy
that's
rule
so
that
real.
doesn't exist though.
I
so.
think Necropotence would have to be the one though, because again, it's just so good.
I've been
It's-
playing that card for so long.
Yeah, I
Love
think
that
it's.
card.
I think that one's just too good. Even if again you get both of them out, you get both of them in your hand at the same time, it doesn't matter because someone gets rid of one. It's still good to have a back.
Do you guys remember the first time I played that? And we were all like, "How do we do this?
Yeah.
Like, how does this freaking card
Well, because
work?"
you had the old version too, so like the wording was super crappy on it, which
Yeah.
never helps.
Yeah.
Which I'm glad they redid some of them.
But-
But
and you know,
yeah.
there's a new Necropotence coming, which
Yeah,
we
we
can talk
went over
about.
that a couple
Yeah.
episodes ago.
Yeah, I think it's in the MH3 set, right?
Yeah.
That's coming out. It's a toned down version
Yeah.
of Necropotence, which
still-
thank
but
God.
It's either going to be amazing or terrible. I
Yeah.
think.
But so there you go. There's our picks
Mm-hmm.
for, the colors. If you have one that you think we missed, please let us know. Email us at castofcommanderspod.com and just give us a heads up on what that might be. Because if you think it's better than the stuff we listed, I definitely want to know what it is.
Yeah, maybe it's something that we've never even heard of because some of you guys have been playing for a while and there's certain cards that we don't know. So please do let us know.
Yep. So, Aggro Jeff, what's aggravating you?
So I've got a almost 13-year-old, just turned 13 in June, and an 11-year-old, and well, they love playing Magic, and I'd love to bring them to the shop, but a lot of times, man, the shops are not very family friendly. Although I was very impressed with Darkside. Now, it was free comic book day, Duncan pointed out. So maybe there was less language because people were aware of that. But the fact that the shop could function in that way was really good. Some of the other shops I've been to, the language is so bad. Just screaming profanity, which I'm not quite sure why that's necessary.
Because if you're going to say it, you want people to hear you.
Apparently, yeah. But not having a family-friendly environment, or at least one that can shift to that, because certainly after 11, 12 o'clock at night, there probably shouldn't be kids there, and that's where like you could be more free to say whatever you want. But I just wish it was more family-friendly.
Well, so
in the
Darkside is a
before
comic
times.
book store first.
Right, and they have the option to play tabletops in the back.
So I think that's probably the key difference. They're not even open past
I mean, but
11.
comic books nowadays are pretty
Yeah,
bad
no,
too.
you're
So
right,
I don't
but
know
I'm
that
saying,
that
but
does
they're
it.
not even open past 11, so it's a very different atmosphere.
Yeah,
It
and
is,
the other
yeah.
thing too, I'd like to point out, which I don't know if you guys are aware of this, like they actually host like intro to D&D games there for kids too. So like
That's
lot of
very cool.
Yeah, like they'll have like a person from the store running a D&D game with like younger kids there. I've been there a couple of times when they're doing it. I went there, I was driving by, so I stopped in real quick to check to see if they had some cards. It was like on a random Saturday, and there was someone there hosting a D&D game for these kids and introducing it to them. And I say kids, I mean like 10-ish.
So that's my point. It can be done.
Yeah,
and I
right.
just
So-
wish some of these other stores would understand the value in doing that.
Yeah.
I think they're missing out huge when they're not engaging the kids.
Yeah, because I will say, now I wouldn't consider myself a child, quote unquote, when I got into Magic, but I was middle school, age, I think around 7th, 8th grade when I started collecting Magic cards and started playing. And, when I first started playing, Jeff was playing at that time, that was at that point. And so I definitely think that, losing a whole demographic until they hit maybe 16 or 17 is like you said, not just a bad decision on the store's part, but also kind of stinks because you're limiting the access to the game.
And kids have money to spend. When I bought their first Magic decks, we went into Dark Side because
when he bought their first.
Yeah, right.
yeah, I guess I said we. Well,
Yeah.
I guess I
No,
meant me and my
you
wife.
said the kids have money to spend.
No, the kid. Well, so we went in, me and my family, and I probably dropped $250 on the kids' decks after I bought the decks.
Right.
And that was all money that went right to Dark Side. So,
Yeah.
you know, having a family-friendly environment will drive business to your store. So
Right.
that's kind of what aggravates me is
Yeah.
that not every store understands that.
Yeah.
Well, I do think though. So I mentioned before that I bring my son Connor to the games sometimes at the shop, and people do tend to tone it down when he's there.
Do they? That's
Even
good.
Lizard, who has a mouth like a sailor on leave,
Yeah.
you know, he makes an effort. And the other thing I'd point out is that there's a player that doesn't come down very often. He moved away to Ocala, but when he comes to town, he'll play with us again. And he really doesn't like swearing. It's just, you know, he
Right.
doesn't like doing it. He doesn't like hearing it. And he's not oppressive about it. He doesn't say people watch your language or anything. He just lets it be known.
Yeah, I
If
don't
you could
prefer it.
please- And people do make an effort not to.
That's cool.
Yeah.
With almost no exceptions. I won't mention the player, but there was one player that every other word out of their mouth is that. So I don't think they could, if they wanted to,
Right. Yeah.
will stop altogether. But I think they do make an effort to do it less.
But there's been shops I've been at where they don't even care. It's not even an
Yeah.
like you can't even bring it up for a discussion. Like it's just the culture of that shop that it's that way, and I think that's really sad and frustrating. It annoys me.
Yeah. I would even say too, I think there was one shop that's no longer open, but like even the people working at the shop
Yep.
would speak like that. And it was like, well, I get it. Like if
We're
your
probably talking
customers
about
do,
the same place.
Yeah, I was like, if your customers do, I get it. Or, you know, if you're off sitting at a table playing a game, but like when you're doing that from behind the counter, it's a little rough. I would
Yep.
agree. So,
All right, that's my aggravating
So to
section.
be clear, that was not a first world problem. I think that was a good topic. I
Yeah.
think that is something that's valid. And I'm on both sides of it, right? Like I want people to feel comfortable and be able to just be themselves, but there's a time and a place, right?
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
you said, after a certain time. And the other thing is if no kids are around, that's one thing, as long as you can shut it off when there are kids around.
yeah,
right.
for sure.
So I like that. So now we're going to talk about things that don't do what you think they do. And we're going to talk about as it enters the battlefield effects.
Right.
So I see all the time that somebody will cast a spell that has as it enters the battlefield, and they'll pass priority. And priority will pass all the way around. The player lets the thing hit the table, and then somebody says, well, now I kill it. So it doesn't get the thing. That's not how that works.
Well, furthermore, too, which I think is the first point
Whoops.
that you kind of just glossed over there is if it has an enters the battlefield effect, if it's like a targeted one, you don't have to say anything until it actually resolves.
Right, you don't
I've
have to
seen
choose
that
a target.
mistake a lot.
Yeah.
Too, where someone's like, I'm casting this, and let's say, for example, it's a Oblivion Ring, a classic white enchantment.
They're going to tell
Ex-
you what it targets.
They're going to tell you what it targets before it actually enters, which technically it says when it enters the battlefield, it then exiles
And you
that
are
thing.
hurting yourself so much
You
when you say
Don't
that.
give up the right away.
Yeah. Yeah.
Unless
Don't give
if
up
for
the right away.
political reasons, I have had it where somebody's like,
Yes.
well, what are you going to target?
Yes.
Because I am going to deal with it unless you tell me it's not going to target my stuff.
Which it's good to
Which that's
bluff.
tape-
That's
yeah.
a great bluff too, by the way.
Yeah.
Might as well try, even
But-
if you don't have it.
Yeah, so the first part about this, which I don't think was your intentions, is just getting that part right. Like, don't tilt your hand before you have to.
Right.
If it's an enters the battlefield effect, technically you don't have to, if it's a targeted effect specifically, name anything until it actually hits the table.
Right.
Because people will jump the gun so quickly and they'll say, I'm casting this and I'm targeting this.
We need to just be communicating. Don't give up the right away, and keep talking about that at the games and see if we can make it a thing.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
So then, as you're saying, so then the effect.
when it enters, the effect is on the stack.
Mm-hmm.
You kill the creature, the effect is still on the
Correct.
stack. Now, unless it was something like put a +1/+1 counter on this creature
when it enters the battlefield,
when
right.
it enters the
Well,
battlefield.
that's still on the stack. It just
Yeah.
won't have anything to target when it goes off.
So it'll
Yeah.
fizzle. The only way you can stop most as it enters the battlefield effects is to stifle it once it's been successfully cast.
Yeah,
Yep.
once it's hit the battlefield, the only way to deal with it is stifle it. Yeah.
Stifle it.
If you want
Stifle
to, yeah,
type
if you want
effect.
to stop the effect specifically. If you're just wanting to kill it, it also has to be there for you to kill it, which is something we kind of talked about before with, white removal spells. Is they have great removal spells, but all of them, the thing has to be in play first, right? So
Yeah. So the two parts of this: when you cast it, don't say ahead of time what you're targeting if you don't have to,
correct.
because if it's a permanent and says as it enters, you don't have to target till it says that. Till
Until
that
it enters,
ability is
right.
going on the stack. And the second thing is killing the creature does not, or the permanent does not prevent the ability from going off.
Correct.
So
Yeah, I mean that's a good one because I do remember, especially in at least my infancy of Magic the Gathering, that was an issue. Is because in your head you cast so many instances, you just kind of think you always have to name the target as soon as you cast it. But with permanents, again, it's very different. You hold it and you don't name the target until it actually resolves. So that way, everyone needs to figure out: should I counter this? Should I wait till it hits to see what am I going to do? Because again, you don't want to give up the right of way. So.
right. So that's how that one might not work the way most people, or not most people, but how a lot of people try and interact with it.
Especially newer players.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But you'd be surprised how many veteran players forget. Like, I say veteran because they've been playing a while, not
Yeah.
because they necessarily know the rules as well.
Or maybe they're old and they forget.
Yeah,
Jeff.
like Jeff. So we're going to move on to today's topic: commanders we hate to face.
Right. This is kind of hard for me because this kind of goes back to our last episode. We were talking about like things we don't like to play against in regards to like extra turns and chaos. Most of my stuff for that episode and that topic was based around the person, and it's kind of the same thing here. My whole thing is if you're going to bring a deck to the table and you're going to set it down, let's say you're bringing Urza, which is one of the ones you have listed here, the High Lord Artificer. He is a CEDH deck. And no matter how you build him, he will always be good. Unless you're intentionally not putting artifacts in your deck, that's about the only way he can't be good.
Yeah,
But
or they're high cost.
Doesn't he
artifacts.
still make artifacts though? Or-
He makes one.
he makes one. when
yeah,
it comes
so
to-
no, he's still good. Even
So-
with no artifacts.
yeah,
Because he will keep doubling and doubling and
No,
doubling.
he only gets one.
he only gets one when he enters.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, he doesn't like get to copy him and make another one. Or he's just
Okay.
when it enters, he gets one.
That
But,
one gets bigger the more artifacts. You
yeah,
have.
the more artifacts you
gotcha.
control, it gets bigger. But so if the player sits down to the table and we're like, hey, we're playing like this deck and this deck and this deck.
Precons.
Yeah, let's say we're playing precons, and then they drop an Urza, and we're like, okay. And he's like, oh, it's not that strong. And then he wins on turn 3. I'm like, all right, like,
So I'm.
stop it.
Yeah, exactly. So I am going to preface this by saying we're talking about EDH, not CEDH.
Correct, we are.
So in any instance you're playing EDH, to me, High Lord Artificer is not appropriate.
Yeah, I mean, it's
Who's the
that is
I
a
feel
hard
like
one.
it's I don't know what colors it is, but there's the commander that's known for extra spells. What is her name?
Known for extra spells.
I can't remember her name, but basically, if you see her, you know they're going to be playing extra spells. Or you brought up the one.
How are they getting extra spells? They get the copy spells?
No, it's just when you see that commander, you know she's built with. I think she does copy, but she's designed to build around extra turns. And then,
Extra turns.
yeah, sorry,
That's
I said that wrong.
Maidami of the Ages, I believe.
Then there's another one too, but I don't remember her name. So well on me. But then the other
2 for
one you
2.
brought up is Stacks. There are commanders you see. You're like, that's a Stacks commander.
Yeah, Grand Arbiter is like the most notorious one. 2 white, blue. All your spells your opponents cast cost 1 more. Your white spells cost 1
Although
less.
right
Your blue
before
spells
this
cost 1.
episode, Jeff
one
said
less.
he wouldn't mind seeing, or before.
I don't. My only point is there are some commanders you might, because you have a tendency to not like the style, you might react to that commander and go, nope, I'm kind of out. And I think when we talked earlier, even someone said, Johnny, I think he said, Grand Arbiter cannot be, or
It's optimally known as like a stacks commander.
but you could build it without
Which
it.
I
yeah.
just did. I built
Yeah.
a deck. It was mostly for the colors. I wanted to do a bounce deck. It's all about bouncing stuff over and over. Just not exile, returning stuff to people's hand. And I decided on white blue was the color combination I wanted to go with.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like looking at commanders, and I'm like, well, Grand Arbiter makes all my stuff cost 1 less.
and it makes everyone else cost 1 more.
cost 1 more. It's not in there for the stacks, but it works.
But that's part of my point, is why I'm bringing this up, is you might react to a certain commander thinking it's not that the commander's necessarily really strong. It's a play style that you assume is coming with it.
Well,
Right.
so all the ones I had written down are ones that to me you cannot build not strong.
You want to just read those real quick?
So I have Urza High Lord Artificer. I have Brago.
Yeah, Bronco's gross.
I have Crick.
Yep, that's the mono black one, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
Thrasios.
That's the green blue.
Yeah.
Just draw cards.
It's the one that's partnered with what's her face all the time, right?
Timna. Yeah.
Yeah, Timna. That's the one that's
But it's
green,
you-
blue, white, black.
Yeah, you pay
And
like
Thrasios is more the way it's built. Because you could build a Thrasios deck that's not good.
it's 4 colorless that you have to pay.
Yeah, it's hard.
It's so
Still-
cheap. And then there's cost
unless you're
reducers.
unless you're intentionally not using that ability, which again, it's kind of silly then to build him, like build a different Simic deck.
Right.
Like that's the whole
I
reason
mean,
why
if
you
you,
build
I guess
that
if
deck.
you didn't put the cost reducers in there.
Yeah, exactly. But the
still,
rest
even
of them,
then,
I
it's still
agree, you
pay
can't.
4. You get to look
The
at
rest of them
top
you can't
4.
really build weekly.
Right.
Like you can't build.
Tulane was the other one I had.
Yeah,
that one's
Tulane.
also powerful.
Tulane's gross too.
I mean, every time you play
And then,
any creature,
Prosper
you get to draw a
Tomebound.
card, gain a life, and play a land.
Prosper Tomebound, the Dragon.
Which dragon?
I think it's a Storm deck. Frick. My
The
memory
Italia
is
one?
not working
Are
today.
you talking about
no.
the new Italia one that's
No.
red on one side, green
Nope.
on the other?
No.
I know a lot of people hate that one now.
That
I
one's
give up.
super strong. Yeah.
Yeah. I think one of the ones that I don't like is now that I think about it is Cranko. Just because like every time I've seen someone play a Cranko, like it wins so fast and they all do the same thing. Like you get Cranko out, you copy, I make infinite copies, I just attack everybody with
Yeah,
infinite.
that's boring.
It's like the same, it's like never different. It's always the same thing. It is a goblin, create a million goblins, attack everybody.
No, I've
and
seen
win.
it done better than other times.
Right, but
yeah.
it's always it's like oh my gosh, it's like,
and
all
I
right.
that would be my answer is any commander where it's boring. It's like I know exactly what you're doing. You're gonna do the same thing every time.
Yeah.
Boring, seen it.
Yeah.
Do something else. Like I like the commander decks where you're just gonna win in different ways. Like I know people give hate to Atraxa, and I get it because you see her a lot, but she does so many different things. And even in a Planeswalker deck, I almost never win the same way. It's always a different way.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's part of my building style too. I do try to genuinely build different types of decks that win different ways. Like I have a discard deck, I have a spell slinger deck, I have a infect quote unquote deck, I have a and I try and I do that on purpose because like you said, I don't want to always just win the same way with every single deck.
But even though they are those decks, they're not winning with the same cards necessarily.
Right.
Like you're not just because you have a Craterhoof Behemoth in your deck doesn't mean you're always winning with Craterhoof
Right.
Behemoth. But if someone's built the deck where that's all they're doing is tutoring for Craterhoof every time, you're like, oh, seen it. Come
Right.
on.
That's
Yeah.
and which is pretty much CEDH.
Yes,
You know,
that's why I don't
Right.
like CEDH.
Yeah.
It's boring.
You know.
Yeah, I mean most CDH decks, if there's certain colors, you know what the win combination is. You know what they're going to do. You know what they're trying to fetch and what they're trying to play. It's and again, that's pretty much the nature of most things when you get to competitive scenes form, right? It's kind of based around the same thing. So yeah, I mean the ones that you mentioned here are pretty gross. I know Jeff doesn't like Prosper. I just built him, which is probably why he's bringing him up.
I've never played him.
He's never played.
I've never
against it
played
yet.
your deck, but my point is I'm bringing
Yeah.
up Prosper because most people admit it's disgusting.
Yeah, it's,
Here's what I would say though. The difference is Prosper. There are builds that are less strong than other builds.
right.
Unlike the ones I listed, I feel like all of those, pretty much any way you build them, are going to be great.
Yeah, like the easiest example because this happened. Jeff built a $25 or less version of Brago.
Oh yeah.
Still destroyed people. Like it
Yeah.
still was disgusting, and it's just because of what that card.
And I don't ever
innately
play
does.
it now because
Yeah.
there's no point.
Yeah, it's because it's so good. Like you and I actually had an expensive version of Brago, and like one of the first times I played it, it was just like this is like nothing about this feels good. Like I'm able to win like all the time.
Well,
But
sort
it's
of.
just like, but like even it's just like one of those things where it's like if you have enough stuff set up, it's like it's gross. Like it's just there's nothing really to do to control them. Anywhere from a $25 version up to a $500 version, he's just always going to be gross. So I mean that's that's a really good
what
example.
we're really saying is we don't like pub stompers. People that just
I don't even mind that. It's just
Oh, I do. Well, you
I
don't mind
mind
pub
it.
stompers?
No, because it's great. It's like, okay, cool. You beat me like that. Let me pull out my pub stomp deck and let's see who actually can pub stomp somebody. Like, that's my point. It's like, again, it goes back to who, like, what are you presenting this deck as? Are you telling me up front, guys, this deck's a little bit more competitive? It could maybe be CEDH, but it's probably like a strong 8 out of 10. Like, if you're presenting it that way, if you sit on the table and say, oh, this is a jank deck, and then like on turn 3 you win, I'm like, where was the jank? Oh, it wins on turn 3 like every time. That's janky. I'm like, no, that's competitive. Like, you need to redefine words.
And it doesn't mean that sometimes crazy stuff won't happen. I think
Right.
I played I played my Dragon once at the shop with you, Duncan, and I think on like turn 3 I had like 10 or 12 mana or something ridiculous.
Right.
It's never ever happened again in all the times I've played it. But that one game, it was perfect, and I absolutely won. No one had a chance. Someone could walk away and go, "Oh, well, you pub stomped." Well, but not on purpose. I mean, that's only happened once.
Well,
Right.
So I will also say, like, I know when I used to play Jingataxius as my commander,
Yeah.
for a lot of people, that's one they do not like.
Yeah.
It's a real feels bad when people discard their hands.
Well, and mostly because people don't deal with the build up to it. It's like,
Right.
sorry, you don't want to destroy the, I don't know, artifact that taps for 3 mana that normally wouldn't be a target, but you have to. Sorry,
Yeah.
you got to deal with it. You got to waste, removal on it.
Yeah, I mean, and I would say too is, again, it comes down to ultimately, like Jeff mentioned, your perception of that deck commander, right? A lot of times it's just bias. You might be able to play a commander that some people is gross, like your Grand Arbiter. I haven't played it yet, but once I play it, I'm sure I'll be able to
I don't
judge
think it's
it.
going to be that strong. I don't. It's going to be annoying.
Yeah.
I did it to be a little flying ant.
I don't know
flying
what decks you have that aren't
mosquito.
annoying.
But one of the other thing is too is that, like Jeff just mentioned, you can't always base it off of the one game you play, which is why when we talked about building a deck a couple episodes ago, we said play it a lot, like play it a bunch of times before you start making changes, because you might do really good one time where you have a 10 drop commander and you get him out on turn 2 somehow. You might play it the next game and you don't get them out for 8 turns. Like, it's not always going to be that way. And, I understand, like, if you've only played one game with that one person because you're at the shop and that's the first time I've ever seen it, they're like, that dude just pub stomped me. He's kind of an a-hole.
Yeah,
it's
yeah,
like,
you-
well, listen, I'll let you look through the deck and realize it's just a dragon deck. Like, I just happened to have an open hand with Soul Ring, Arcane Signet, in
Mana Crypt, and then a Jessica's Will.
Yeah,
right?
right?
And you're like, sorry.
So it's not always that case, but yeah, I mean, if you're sitting down to a table and you guys are trying to play a little bit more casual, and someone pulls out a deck and everyone's like, that's a CEDH command, they're like, no, it's not, and then they're like, they pub stomp you 4 games in a row, by turn 4 they're winning. It's like, that's my problem.
Najila is another one I feel like I have
one
a
you
Najila
built?
deck. I never play it. I never
Not
play
anymore, you don't. Yeah,
it because it's too strong. Like,
and it does the same thing every time.
I don't
you get
play.
Najila
I
out,
don't
you
play
attack, you pay for the
Selvala.
extra.
I don't know if
boom, boom,
she's
boom, 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 boom.
CEDH the way I have her built, but she's way too powerful for most commander games.
yeah.
Yeah, I mean, because again, it's
I see. I don't feel like that. You have said that several times, and I still don't feel that.
She
way
will.
about
She
Sloan.
consistently
You have
wins on
games-
turn 3 or 4.
She can if she's on the board. Sure.
Yeah, people could try to deal with her, but she's pretty easy to bring back because there's so much mana in that deck.
Well,
yeah, I mean, it
She's
is a
not
mono green
CEDH,
deck, so.
but she's better than
Yeah.
like if I played any of our normal decks with her, it wouldn't be that fun.
Yeah, I mean, I would say, yeah, I mean, against some of my more toned down decks, she wins too quickly. Like, I couldn't keep up with her for sure.
so one of the reasons I wanted this topic is so people can be aware of the perception there is about decks. Certain commanders. Now, if you have a build that you think is weaker on any of these, I would love for you to send the deck list in to us at castthecommanderspod.com, because I would love to see what it is about the deck, because to me, I have seen people say, oh no, I built this tone down. I built Chulane trying to make it weaker. And I said, you know
I
what?
remember.
It's an enchantment deck. It was all enchantment creatures.
Right.
It was still bad.
Yeah.
Well, this is a good point that people should take into account. We've mentioned it on another episode, but it was many, many episodes ago, and it was you should go to EDH Rec and you should see how most people are building the deck. Because if you're building the deck and you're like, oh, I'm doing this interesting thing with it, and then you go look it up and you find out, oh, everybody's building an infect. Like, this is an infect deck and you didn't really know it or something. Or it's an extra turns deck and most people build it with extra turns. you don't realize that you're going to be targeted. And it doesn't matter
people are
how
gonna
much
have
you
that
say,
assumption.
hey, it's not built this way. They're not going to believe you. They're just going to target
to some
you.
degree. If in an extra turns thing, or say infect, right, attracts the infect. If you say, I promise you I have no infect in here, and you're being honest,
Yeah.
most groups will give you a chance. But if you say that and then you're, oh wait, I forgot I have that one infect,
Yeah.
you're not gonna believe that.
Yeah, you might just say, I have one infect card. Because who doesn't play the land with infect?
Right.
Yeah, I mean, I do think it comes down to there's a little bit of bias in it. You know, when you hear that commander name, obviously you're going to be like, that's gross. Like, don't play him, please, because of a little bit of bias that the community has created for those
Well,
commanders.
but I think some of them are justified. I think
yeah,
the ones
absolutely.
The ones you brought up are.
Yeah, and I will say too, don't send us a deck list that's like the commander and a 99 lands. Like, don't troll us. Like, we get it. Like, you can intentionally build a bad version of a deck. We're talking about building a functional version of these decks that isn't just absolutely insane, or a different commander that maybe you don't like to see.
I could think of one build for Urza that would be weak. I just popped into my head. Remember Power Stones?
Yeah.
The ones that come in tapped, right?
Right.
You create them, they're token artifact mana rocks that come in tapped.
Yeah,
if
they're
you did
like
that,
crappy versions of treasure tokens.
right. If you did that, I bet you could. If
Yeah,
you
but
built
even on
just
the
Power
but
Stones.
again, even on the next turn, then they're all untapped.
Right, but at least you have that turn.
Yeah. Okay. One turn.
They were going to tap for mana anyway.
But then you have to sacrifice them technically. Usually, that's the difference.
Not the Power Stones. You don't.
Power Stone. Are you sure?
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure you have to tap and
permanent
sacrifice.
Or meteorites is another one, but meteorites don't come in tap. But anyway,
Yeah.
That was just kind of so just be aware that there are certain commanders you cannot build weak, in our opinion, and in most people's opinion. Again, if you think you have a unique one, maybe let people go through the list and see it before you play, and maybe they'll agree with you. But I don't think it's possible. I would love to see your deck.
Yeah,
list.
I mean, there's a lot of just, I guess, scarring on people from these commanders that we listed specifically. And the other thing is too, we actually built a deck on one of our episodes, and it was a snow creature or whatever. Maybe, and we've all done this, I think, too, is like maybe try to find someone that a lot of people aren't playing and seeing what you can do with it. Maybe intentionally find a commander that's not that good. Who's the red creature that throws rocks at people or whatever?
Oh yeah.
Like, I saw someone build him, and it was like, it wasn't a great deck, but it was just funny because he's like, I'm gonna throw a rock at you. Like, it's like silly things like that too. Now I get it. Some people, I don't want to build a silly deck. I want to build a power pub stomp deck and win all the time. Like, sure. But, winning different ways sometimes is super fun. I know that a lot of us have started kind of doing that, where we're looking at decks and saying, is this literally just going to win the same way every single time? And we're like, I kind of don't want to build it now because...
Or I'll build it, play it once, and put it away.
Yeah.
And those cards I was talking about earlier, it's Kess Dissonant Mage for the extra turns.
Oh, okay, yeah.
And then it's Corvald, Fakehurst King for the
Kess
basically-
Dissonant Mage, I built a CEDH version of it. I actually didn't do extra turns. I just did the Thassa's Oracle Demonic Consultation combo twice.
But
Because I also had Tainted Pact. And so, But yeah, she's a good one. She's blue, black, red, and a 1. And lets you cast on your turn one spell from your graveyard.
Yeah.
which honestly does not bother me. That is not one that I would say no matter what.
Yeah,
is a
I mean,
problem.
she's not...
No, the point
It
for
has a
Kess
stigma.
is it's extra turns. That's how most people build her. So
Right. Now, when I think she does say too, though, when you cast that spell, it will be exiled, but there's ways to keep that from happening whenever you cast that
yeah,
spell.
no, those are just typically commanders people see and go, oh
Right.
no.
Yeah, for sure.
So those are, again, just look out for the ones that cannot be built weak or have that stigma, and be aware. So Sloan, you got any advice for the youngins today?
Yeah, so we're going to jump back to learning the lingo. We said some of the words and phrases today on this episode, and we've used some of these in the past, and we actually have a buddy that we all work with that he doesn't play any Magic at all, and he's like, I listen to your guys' podcast. I usually don't know what you're saying because you're saying words that, don't mean anything to regular people, which is kind of why I started this whole learning the lingo thing. So the 5 terms I got today are... we're going to start with ETB, which we mentioned today, which is enter the battlefield. So when everyone says I have an ETB, what they're referring to is that there is an effect that's going to happen and trigger when something enters the battlefield. So a lot of times that's just a shorthand for it that you hear is ETB. They'll say ETB on the stack. And then, so that's the shorthand for it that you see. That's just an abbreviation. The next one, which was also mentioned earlier, is stifle. Now, this one's actually a little bit more specific because this term actually came up into existence because of a card specifically, and now the term is coined for anything else that does this. It's now called a stifle effect. So it's an instant that's blue, 1 blue to play it, and it says counter target activated or triggered ability. There's a lot more cards that do this now, and they're all known as stifle effects, and it was named that because of this card. I believe it was the first one to actually do it, was called stifle. And so this card name then kind of took over that whole terminology.
Right.
And so that's now what it's known as in Magic is stifle. So when you're stifling something, it's specifically countering the activated or triggered ability of something else. So we mentioned earlier how when an ETB trigger is on the stack, once it actually hits the stack, the only way to then stop it is with a stifle effect. So we use those two terms today in today's episode. So I wanted to go over those ones specifically and explain a little bit more. The next one is, which we all say a lot, mana rocks. And this one actually came up, believe it or not, because of the picture of one of the first artifacts that was created that generated mana, Felwar Stone. It's just a picture of a rock that's kind of like crumbly or whatever.
That's cool. I didn't know that.
Yeah. So
I like
the
that.
whole term came up because it was the art that was used. It's 2 colorless and it's tap, add 1 mana to your mana pool of any color opponent's land can produce. And the whole reason why they're called mana rocks is because it was a picture of a rock.
I had no idea that's why they were called that. That's
and they've
really
leaned
cool.
into it too with
Yeah.
the meteorites, the power stones.
Yeah.
Yep. And and there's even like
They
alternate
need to
arts.
they need to make a secret layer just mana rock. That'd be amazing as a meme.
Yeah, that'd be pretty cool.
Like it is Felwar Stone, but it's mana rock. That'd be amazing.
Yeah, for sure. So, but that's where that term came from. So that's how that came about. The next one is another one that you hear a lot that we say and use, mana dork. And this one, because I looked up the history for all these because I wanted to explain why they came up. This one was an article when one of the first mana dorks, Llanowar was created. The person writing the article for Magic said it's this little 1/1 dork that comes in and produces mana. And so the term mana dork was
That's
then adopted.
hilarious.
Yeah, it was just the guy's description in the article from like the
do you
late
have this
90s.
guy's name?
No, it was I don't know. I didn't look that too.
We're gonna
deep
put
into
that. We'll put that because you found the article.
I didn't find the original article. I found an article just because I asked. I said, "Why are they called mana
It
dorks?"
probably referenced it.
It probably did.
Can we put that on the website?
Yeah, we'll
Who
try
the
to find
article
out
is?
and we'll set the link up for it. But yeah, that's why it was called because he used a descriptor, this little 1/1 dork that comes in and taps for a mana.
When Magic first came out and that happened, it was from written magazines. It
Right.
was not online written.
Right.
So I don't think, unless we can find that article.
But
where
if
it's
they
been
wrote the
posted.
article, they have to source the material, right? So I would
No,
assume.
but I'm saying the original.
Yeah, unless someone
But if
rewrote
you're
it and
just
put it
saying,
online.
just saying to know the name of the person that did
Yeah,
it.
that's
yeah.
all.
Okay. Yeah.
So, and then the last one, the fifth one is bounce. So this is one that you've heard us throw around a lot, specifically Duncan, because he plays blue, which does a lot of this. And so a bounce effect or spell is one that returns a card that is on the battlefield to its owner's hand. So this is a shorthand of slang because it
bounces it.
bounces it
Yeah.
back up.
People will also use it for exiling
Right.
and returning to the battlefield.
Right. So that one,
True.
and there, I'm glad you said that because that was kind of the other part of this is that is also known as the actual term for that is flicker.
Flicker.
And
But
so
people will
you-
say bounce a lot. Like
for
it's pretty
flicker.
much synonymous.
Yeah, because again, it's pretty synonymous with it. But flicker specifically is because of a card named Ghostly Flicker that came from,
Yeah.
which says exile target creature, return it to the battlefield underneath its owner's
That's so
control.
cool.
So yeah, so
This might be my favorite.
learning the lingo.
Yeah, my favorite all together pro tips.
tips?
Yeah.
Yeah. So those are just a couple of terms that you'll hear.
So I want to add
table.
one that we're trying to insert:
Oh yeah,
yielding the right of way.
Yeah, don't give up your right away.
right
Yeah.
away. Yeah.
Don't yield your right away. So that's the one where you don't, just a reminder, don't give up your priority or jump ahead of somebody in priority. Wait for them so that you can have your opportunity and maybe save your resource.
That's right.
Right.
That was awesome.
Yeah. Don't
And,
give it right away.
also it goes with, don't yell out your target before you have to.
Right. Yeah. Don't give up more than you have to. So yeah, don't give away the right of way. If you don't need to, make sure you're doing things in order. So those are just some of the learning the lingos, things that you'll hear slung around the table once you start playing, or you'll hear on our podcast a lot that we do say. So I just wanted to give you a little bit of explanation, a little bit of history of where they came from, because I thought a lot of those terms were cool because I've always used them myself, never knew, except for stifle, I think was the only one I actually knew. But besides that, I had no idea where the other ones came from. So I was like, oh, okay.
Pretty cool.
Yeah, for sure.
So last thing I want to talk about real quick, just something I'm going to insert here before we go to wrap up. For the month of June, which this podcast will be coming out the first week of June, Wizards is promoting this thing where you can build a deck with any 2 legendary creatures and give them partner even though they didn't have it.
Right.
Oh,
So
wow.
I think that's kind of a cool idea. I'm encouraging people to try it out, see how it works. I think there's definitely some gross
That's going to be
combinations you can
broken.
do.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that definitely
Yeah.
that could be a thing.
I mean,
But
when they introduced partners, it was gross.
yeah.
So-
But I'm just thinking, how many times have you built a deck and be like, man, if I could just add this one color. So even if you just do it to get a color in there, that sometimes that you don't have access to.
Yeah, like I can tell you right now, Finn the Fangbearer, to give him black, oh my gosh, there's so much
Did
more
you,
infect
did you
than
know
black.
he is the #1 most popular mono green deck on EDA Trek?
No, I didn't.
Yeah.
Starting a trend.
interesting.
Are Fogs the most popular card in that deck too? Because if they're not, then they're building
probably.
it wrong.
Fogs have got
There should be at least 12 in there. That's
But
how many I
anyway,
have.
so pick any 2 commanders and give them partner. I love it. So everybody
Absolutely.
should try that out. But that's about all the time we have for today. We want to thank you for listening. We want to thank Jack May at Info Pilgrims for editing and producing. You can email us at cast@commanderspod.com. You can head to our Patreon at patreon.com/commanderspod. And you can check us out at commanderspod.com. And remember, everybody, kill Andrew first.